everybody. Welcome to this episode of All the WrestleManias. I'm your co-host, Tim Hagman.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Sigwald.
We got a good one for you today. We got a new one, something from the archive, something we've never done before. We're going to talk about an Extreme Championship Wrestling, a.k.a. ECW show from way back in 1997. I'm kind of hyped about it. Are you hyped about it, Rich?
I am, because just ECW is a fascinating thing in professional wrestling. It's a weird little thing that existed that just blew up and became a pretty big threat for still really being in indie territory. It's weird.
And it changed the business for better or worse. We're still seeing some remnants of it today, when we can talk a little bit about that as we get into it. Well, first, let's see. Our most recent episode, hope you enjoyed it. We talked to The Reason, Jonathan Elliott from Virginia Championship Wrestling. He had a match, 2-on-1 match, him and who was his partner, Logan Easton LaRoe versus Brandon Scott at the event here in Virginia a week or two back, and they beat up on poor Brandon, a friend of the show. We enjoyed talking to Jonathan, though he's kind of a dirt.
Yeah, that didn't look fair, to say the least, from the photographs I saw. So... what the hell?
I don't know, man. John? They don't play fair, those heel tag teams. And they have another event coming up in Alexandria, second weekend in November, excuse me. I'm actually going to make the trip up from down here in Norfolk and go check it out. And we hope to have some more VCW related guests, some special surprises before that show. So stay tuned and keep an eye out for those. That should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah, so ECW, the pay-per-view in question we want to talk about today is Barely Legal from 1997. It happened at the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's basically just a little multi-purpose indoor sport thing. Tiny place. The attendance for this one is 1,170, which I think makes it the smallest show we've reviewed on the on the podcast, right?
And when you watch this thing, you're like, holy crap, they crammed 1,000 people into that thing. Jesus, it looks smelly. When you watch, it looks so smelly and looks so miserable, and I possibly would have showed up to that and then walked out. I don't know if I could have stood being in that environment. I don't know.
It's jam packed, and that crowd is hype. They are chanting, they're waving their signs, they're yelling and cursing pretty much the whole damn time. They're having they're having a brawl. I think I'm with you. I probably would have ducked out. I would have just taken one look and nope, maybe I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah, especially when you start noticing that there's uniformed police officers interspersed in the crowd.
It's Philadelphia, so no offense to the city of brotherly love, but not a city known for particularly well-behaved sporting crowds.
Yeah, it's not just Philadelphia. This is in South Philly, so it's the dirty South. It's the rough area here. Where you need to go to Pat's and Gino's in the daytime, because otherwise it's scary at night. This is a very intense show. It is very violent. It is brilliant. I don't know what else to say about it. The show surprised me. It really did.
Yeah, it's really the first ECW I've sat down and watched. Did you pay much attention to it when it was on kind of the first time around?
I caught a couple of the shows when it was on TNN and around the turn of the millennia. But that was about it, and I didn't really take it very seriously. I didn't watch very much of it. I just caught it when I could, because I was a mark for WWE and that was that, so I was just like, oh, well, there's this other thing, I guess I'll watch it. And it was like, oh, this is rough. But it's also kind of like driving by a car wreck. You have to look.
Yeah, you have to look a little bit. Yeah, I had sort of the same experience. I don't remember exactly which years I would have caught it, but enjoying wrestling like I do. Oh, it's another wrestling program on. Hey, I heard these guys are kind of crazy. I'll check it out. But yeah, I never watched very much. It always seemed, it's pretty low budget. Kind of gritty, kind of, oh, dare I say, extreme. But I was really glad to actually watch this, and I think this was a perfect show to start out with. And this one actually has a kind of interesting history. This thing almost didn't get on the air, and it barely got pay-per-view release. Did you read anything about that and setting up for this?
Not too much. I mainly have just been reading about the history of ECW and Paul Heyman, because they're really the reason what drew us into this. Was we've both have been having man crushes on Paul Heyman, basically. The dude is brilliant. He's brilliant at every turn. He has incredible longevity in this business, from being a teenage ringside photographer to becoming a manager, to working himself into working for Studio 54 and being a booker there, and then finding his way into Jim Crockett Promotions and the AWA and being a manager of the hottest tag team of that time period, the Midnight Express, and then being the manager of the Samoan SWAT team, which became the Head Shrinkers when they jumped over to WWF. The dude just can't be sunk, and then he gets fired by Bill Watts, and he jumps over, and Eddie Gilbert is booking at that time Eastern Championship Wrestling, and Eddie Gilbert gets in a fight with the owner of ECW, and Paul Heyman is suddenly the head booker and in charge of creative for ECW. And then after a little bit of time, he finds himself owning ECW. And the whole concept of turning them extreme was his idea. It was his little baby. And I can see why. I mean, that crowd has bloodlust.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, they've been doing the extreme stuff for like 4 years by the time Barely Legal happens. But if the same folks have been coming out to those shows for 4 years, you obviously got to start putting people through tables pretty quickly. Otherwise, they're going to do it to you.
Yeah, you got to constantly sort of up the ante and raise the violence quotient. Speaking of that, this thing, the reason this almost didn't get on the air was that a couple of the big cable and pay-per-view providers dropped it because there was an incident. This is April of 1997. I didn't mention that at the top, but there was an incident in November of 96. They call it the mass transit incident. That's a wrestler by the name of... Eric, what was Eric's last name? Eric Koulis. He was in a match with New Jack, and he was 17, I believe. He wasn't really supposed to be wrestling. He had lied to Paul Heyman about his age, and he asked New Jack to blade him because he was new and hadn't no experience, and New Jack did, and severed 2 of his arteries, and dude almost bled out in the ring. And so it kind of became... sort of a rallying point for folks who were opponents of ECW, and a couple of those big cable providers dropped it, and there was a big fan push. They eventually managed to convince 1 or 2 networks, I think, to pick it up for pay-per-view, and it ended up doing somewhere around 60,000, 66,000 buys, which is minuscule, obviously, compared to a WWE show, but it's also pretty big. That's a lot of people for a tiny promotion in a corner of South Philly in an old shitty gym, So,
and the weird thing is that ECW was one of the last territories. So it was a member of the NWA for a couple years. What? Fascinating. So it was originally called Eastern Championship Wrestling. At one point, they even were hosting an NWA World Championship tournament in the early 90s. And then that's when they broke away from the NWA. Yeah, they have a fascinating history. So, do you have any idea who the first world champion was in ECW?
I don't know.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka is their first heavyweight champion.
Oh, wow.
And he won it in April 25th, 1992. And he defeated Salvatore Bellomo for it.
Oh, yeah, we've seen him before.
Yeah, in a tournament. And then he held it for 1 day, and then he dropped it to a guy named Johnny Hotbody. And then Snuka picked it back up a couple months later. And then Snuka dropped the title after a couple months to Don Morocco.
Oh, wow. That's insane.
Yeah. And then he loses it to the Sandman, who WWE doesn't recognize as the champion at that point in their history of the belt. But then Don Morocco wins it back from him in Radnor, Pennsylvania, which is actually kind of close to where my wife is from. And then he loses the belt to good old El Matador Tito Santana.
Oh, Tito.
Right. So you can see now why I'm like absolutely fascinated by the ECW history. Like, these are names from WWF in the 80s that are having like a renaissance basically in this little tiny territory operating out of South Philly. And then Shane Douglas, Sabu comes along, and then Terry Funk has his first title run with them in 1993. And then in 1995, they become Extreme Championship Wrestling. And that's when Paul Heyman is really, really the dude in charge of everything there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's that 93 with Terry Funk, that's way earlier than I would have guessed.
Yeah.
And he's actually one of the reasons we put the show on, because, he just passed away. He was an incredible talent, somebody we've always really enjoyed watching, and just a giant in the industry. So we're happy to kind of watch some of his work and pay tribute to him in the course of doing that. Going back to Paul Heyman for a minute, I think his recent run on SmackDown and the Bloodline and all that stuff has been absolutely incredible, and it's so fascinating just to watch him work. He's like head and shoulders above anybody else around him. And what makes him really interesting to me is that there's a sense that he's like that outside the ring as well, right? He is this kind of like shady, a little bit slimy, a little bit of a huckster. He reminds me almost of like a Colonel Tom Parker, like in real life as well as in the ring, like somebody who's always just kind of like moving around the edges and cutting deals and finding a way for him to get himself into the action, and if it's good for his guys, that's great. But as long as it's good for Paul Heyman, that's even better,
Yeah, he definitely has this persona of being shrewd and crafty, but also incredible business sense. Like, he knows where things are going before they go somehow. And that seems to be in real life where how he just follows the road somehow in the fog. Like, he jumps from the NWA and WCW to doing ECW, and then ECW gets swallowed into WWE, and suddenly here he is in the top tier with things. And and the thing is that he had a relationship with Vince McMahon the entire time, because he's smart and he knows what's going on. But yet he also, because he did that early photography stuff with WWF and and then like sneaking himself in as a teenager to do things at Madison Square Garden. It's insane. The stuff, like, it's so very similar to Jim Cornette too at the same time. Really is. Like, because that's how Jim Cornette got involved. And then our friend George Pantis down, that's what how he got looped in was filming ringside matches in Norfolk, and then suddenly WWE coming to him like, hey, we want to buy that. Can we buy your film? So it's an incredible history. It's just an amazing story. If you guys have time to read about Paul Heyman, do it. Don't rely on whatever WWE bullshit clip show that they're going to put together for him with the Hall of Fame induction, because they're going to rewrite some history, but it's going to be that's another reason why we focused in on this, because there's no doubt that Paul Heyman has to be going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year with WrestleMania 40 from Philadelphia. And it got my wrestling conspiracy brain going that like Paul Heyman is going to do something shady to screw over Roman Reigns at that WrestleMania and in that title run.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be in the Hall of Fame class that's coming. You ready to talk about this card?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it because it's got some great stuff.
What a fun show. What a fun show. So again, ECW Barely Legal, April 13th, 1997, from ECW Arena, Philadelphia, PA, city of brotherly love, and maybe some other things. Attendance is 1,170. The ring announcer here is Bob Artest. The commentators are Joey Styles, and Tommy Dreamer comes out for one of the matches. So, pretty decent announcing, but none of the big names that we've been familiar with. But there are 9 matches on this card, including 2 dark matches that we don't see. I'll just give you those results real quick. Louis Spicolli, a.k.a. Madonna's boyfriend, a.k.a. Radford, and a bunch of different gimmicks. He defeated Balls Mahoney in a singles match to start the show in about 5 minutes. And then there was a tag team match between Christopher Chetty, JT Smith, and the Full-Blooded Italians, which was Little Guido and Tommy Rich in a tag team match. That was a win for Chris and JT. And then we get down to the actual match. And I think it's fitting, actually, that it starts out with the Dudley boys, who are folks that I think of as just sort of iconic, associated with ECW. There's a few of those folks, and they're pretty much all on this card, but the Dudley Boys for sure. They're so of course that's Bubba Ray and Devon. They have Joel Gertner and Sign Guy Dudley in their corner, and they are facing off against the Eliminators, which is Cronus and Saturn, who is obviously Perry Saturn. Cronus is George Cayazzo, who I wasn't familiar with, and it's a tag team match for the ECW World Tag Team Championship, and they get it going right out of the gate.
Yeah, so I think we should just warn the audience now at this point that there is a lot of profanity in the show, and it's going to automatically trickle down into this recording, because right off the bat we're hit with a "fuck you, Devon" chat. Which is incredible. It's 1,000 people chanting that. It's quite powerful. You can also see that someone is openly smoking in the second row of this event. Really? To give you an idea of what we're seeing. And the ring announcer is in a tuxedo but no shirt. It's kind of weird, and there's a weird highlight package of ECW, and it introduces us to some of the most terrifying shit you've ever seen in professional wrestling happening. And so we then kind of get weirdly dumped into this match of the Dudleys versus the Eliminators, and this is right away we see there's no rules.
Yeah, it just starts. It's not like, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, we're wrestling now. Actually, we're fighting now. So yeah, so strap in.
There's no tagging. There's no tags whatsoever. All 4 men are apparently legal in the ring at the whole time. So if this is your first exposure to ECW, you're like, oh, what? And like you, and if you know that Paul Heyman is running the thing, you know that Paul Heyman is actually a traditionalist, and we're like, oh, what? Like, why are there no tags? There's no, it's just beat the crap out of each other for several minutes. And, yeah. And there's some impressive spots between the two, but like, it is pure chaos, and they shouldn't call it tag team wrestling. They should just call it duos. It's duos. These are
duos wrestling.
It's this 4 men wrestling. 2 of them are on the same side of each other.
Yeah. I like that, actually. And then you could differentiate between trios wrestling and 6-man tag, right?
Right.
Which right now AEW just uses trios for that. But no, the whole thing is like double teams and jumping off of stuff. Bubba Ray apparently suffers a legit broken ankle in the course of this match. I didn't happen to see it. Did you catch it?
No, I did not. So, but it doesn't surprise me and I'm shocked that that's the only injury that came out of this match. Honestly,
the Eliminators hit their finishing move. Saturn pins Bubba Ray, I believe, and they win the tag team championship. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. I'm not sure what the heat on Devon is coming into this show. I'm not sure why the crowd was so pissed at him.
I don't know either, but I know that the Dudleys were mainly heels the entire time over there. And they mainly just come out and talk shit about Philadelphia. That's all you got to do. It's is just the cheap heat stuff. But this crowd is so angry and liquored up, in all likelihood that's all it is. Because I mean, there's the entire audience is giving double birds through pretty much the entire match. It's also
if you read on the Wikipedia page, they talk about the DVD release of this show afterwards, and I guess WWE censored the language that was used in the promos, but they can't do anything about the language that's coming from the crowd, and so they bleep all the promos and stuff, but then you still hear the crowd going "fuck you, Devon."
Yeah, they only bleep one, and I think they just gave up because I heard one beep, and then like there was one blurring of a middle finger, and then after that. It's like they're just like, we can't fix this. Just
why would
whatever.
You bother?
Just put it up there. Just put it out. Whatever. It's edgy. That's for sure.
So maybe not a great match, but definitely a great way to start the show. I didn't take a lot of notes, so if I skip over important promos and stuff, let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to just kind of keep going through the matches themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this was a baptism by fire, honestly. And this is also another one of those shows where there's just like people standing in the back.
Yeah,
they're like the people that they can't be bothered by sitting. They have to stand the entire time, and so they just stand in the back like they're ready to go. They're ready to get out, kind of thing. So,
well, just in case shit jumps off, right?
Right.
In case somebody throws an actual Molotov cocktail or a lit cigarette into the ring,
yeah,
be able to duck out. So, well, I would say if you haven't experienced ECW and this is kind of you're like, oh, okay, let's watch this and see, hang in past this match. It's like I said, it's not a great start, but there are a lot of rewards down the card here. So just stick with it, and you'll be glad that you did.
And this is also where I cringed as well because there's only maybe 2 feet between the ring and the safety rail to the crowd.
That's nothing. Yeah.
There's no space for the people to work outside of the ring, and there's a lot of outside of the ring work. So it is very rough. It is I'm surprised that Bubba is the only one that got hurt in this match, and it was only a broken ankle. So
yeah. I mean, it could have been dozens more in the crowd. We just didn't hear about them. So. The next up on the card is 2 amazing workers. It's Rob Van Dam and Lance Storm in a singles match. No title on the line or anything. Lance Storm is one of those guys he's been around for a long, long time. He seems to be an actually decent human being, at least going by his social media presence. But I've always sort of enjoyed watching him work. He's one of those guys who's maybe not the most exciting performer you'll ever see, but he's so I'd say sort of clean and technical and proficient. Even when he was in some really shitty gimmicks, like the WWE had him in was it Right to Censor? Was that?
No, I think he was in the Un-Americans or whatever.
The Un-Americans. Yeah, you're right. You're
stupid.
Right.
Which
is kind of lame, but he's still good.
Yeah. So right before that match was a promo by Chris Candido. And he comes out and he's all hot and he talks about how he's been on a bunch of WrestleManias and that he was a key figure in the WWF success or something like that, and that he started ECW and a bunch of gibberish, and the crowd's not having it. I don't quite understand the point of this promo, so I don't want to go into details about it, but it was random and it sounded like a ranty, angry employee that feels that they're more important than what they actually are. But yeah.
So apparently he was scheduled to be Lance Storm's opponent for that match. So maybe I guess that's what he was going there.
About. Okay.
Say that he's not ducking anybody. He had a legitimate bicep injury, I believe it was. But I don't know if that. I mean, that's what he was saying. I don't know if that was actually the case or not. So I guess that's why he's there.
And there was also a Sandman highlight clip. Was this basically him coming out in a t-shirt and Zubaz pants with a kendo stick and a beer can repeatedly. So we can get into the Lance Storm versus RVD, which was a fantastic match. In my opinion.
It was really good. And you kind of if you've seen Rob Van Dam on AEW lately, he's significantly older. Obviously, he's slowed down quite a bit, but he was really dynamic when he first came out. And he was completely over. People loved him. They loved chanting along with him. He was just one of those. I don't know. He was sort of unstoppable there for a few years.
Yeah. I took some weird notes in this one. So there's a kill him chant that happens during this match. There's a guy in the front row that you can see now that clearly has a shirt that says "Who gives a fuck." There's another sign that pops up during this match that says "Bischoff takes it up the ass."
Wow.
Yeah. So this crowd, I was very distracted by the crowd during this, but yeah, these guys are moving at the speed of light through
this
match.
Is a super fast match, and they work really well together. There's a lot of just this is partially why I didn't take any notes. It's just kind of like too fast to keep track of. But there's some good stuff. They break out the chairs at one point, exchange some chair shots. There's lots of flying and jumping kicks as sort of a kind of standard for your Rob Van Dam match.
Yeah.
What other weird notes did you take?
Well, Lance Storm was doing Hulk Hogan style chair shots where they look really weak, and it's very clear that he's just like kind of patting him with the chair, and the crowd starts giving Lance shit for doing said weak chair shots. There's a point where Lance Storm goes over the top rope and misses Rob Van Dam and just straight up pancakes onto the concrete floor. Where Joey Styles reminds us that there's no mats on the outside of the ring because they're not. I think he might have said they're not pussies. So yeah, it's yeah. And also it was just like RVD brings in a chair into the ring, no problem, no issues. But there are rope breaks. For if you reach the ropes while in submission. So there is at least one rule.
That's always one of the weirdest things to me is like what rules they choose to follow,
Yeah.
And or there'll be no rules, but then the bad guy will win by pulling the tights, and then somebody has to point it out that they pulled the tights. Well, after all that just went before, what the fuck does that even matter?
Right. So, but there's rope breaks, but you can easily just bring a chair into the ring and brain somebody with it. So it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just but you got to respect the rope breaks. Van Dam kicks a chair into Lance Storm's face, does his standing moonsault, gets the pin for the victory. That's a barn burner. I would go watch that one again, actually.
Yeah, and I think Lance Storm is only like 21, I think they say at this point.
It's crazy.
And RVD is only like 23, and these guys are putting on a fucking clinic. Lance Storm is 28 and RVD is 27 at the time of this match.
I know he was really well trained. He came out of OVW.
Who, Lance?
Yeah.
Lance is out of the dungeon in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh yeah, of course. Obviously. Yeah. He must have been like a prodigy though, or something like.
To be 21 and working the way he does here, and you can tell that he doesn't want to do this type of wrestling.
Yeah.
Also, he has a weird crew cut and a ponytail. That's really off-putting, but it makes him look like a 10-year-old.
He's been professional at the time of this show for 7 years.
Jeez.
Anyway, he's only 54, I think, now. Anyway, so, love that guy, Lance. Shout out to Lance and Rob. All right, so this is, no, I'm not going to say it's the best. This is one of my favorite matches on the card. It is a 6-man tag match between two Japanese teams. So on one side, you've got the Great Sasuke, you've got Gran Hamada, and you've got Masato Yakushiji. And they are wrestling BWO Japan, which is the Blue World Order. Obviously a takeoff on the New World Order, but blue. And that includes Taka Michinoku, Terry Boy, and Dick Togo. So, this match is fucking nuts. It's nuts.
Yes, it is. I barely took any notes from it because I couldn't stop. I was excited because streamers came out. They threw streamers. That was my favorite thing from going to the Ring of Honor shows. It was the fucking streamers. And then seeing Gran Hamada work, and I was just absolutely locked in on him through this entire match. He is a short little firecracker of a man that just is laying in like some of the stiffest shots you ever see.
No, he is a tough looking dude. He was born in 1950, and this is 97, so he was 47 here. He didn't retire until 2018.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that the way he moves, he is impeccably trained and in perfect fitness. And so I'm not surprised that he was able to work that long, just because it's very clear that he is working smart, he's working safe, and he is working hard. Like, he is just bringing it through this entire match. And I was hooked on him immediately. And so I had to start digging about him just because. And it looked like, so he actually held the inaugural WWF Intercontinental Tag Team Championship, which is a very obscure tag championship, and the WWF got rid of it 7 months later when their partnership with the UWF Japan ended. So it was like a cross-promotional belt.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, so he was partnered with Pedro Agallo. So that guy was a big time luchador out of AAA mostly, and and if you look at his credits, he's got massive amounts of things. So like in 2003, he was ranked the 38th best wrestler by Pro Wrestling Illustrated out of their top 500. He worked with the UWA, the WWA, the WWC, the WWF, the AAA. So he was a big time player as well. So I went down the rabbit hole with that guy for sure.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So he he apparently was one of the first Japanese guys to pick up sort of the lucha libre thing and kind of make it a big deal. And he wrestled all over Mexico. He had a lot of big time matches down there. He has 2 daughters actually who wrestle now, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, did I mention this match is nuts? This, because you texted me, you're like, there's the greatest 6-man tag match I've ever seen on right now. And I'm like, oh shit. So then I was super excited to cue it up, and it definitely delivers. I don't really even know where to start in terms of individual moves or moments or anything. I think you just got to kind of watch it, but it's an A+ moment on an otherwise pretty stacked card.
Yeah, you don't expect this coming either. Like, you're just like, wait, how did they get these guys from Japan to come here? And then how did they get like 6 of the best guys out of Japan to come? And like, we've seen Taka Michinoku, we've talked about him on this show before because he was in the WWF for a while, and then he left and he started his own thing over in Japan, and now we see him again, and he's come back, and he is a fucking boss. Just that everybody in this match delivers. There's a guy dressed in all black that looks like a ninja. That is awesome. People are going everywhere. People are flying everywhere. There's a guy named Terry Boy, and he took that name because he loves Terry Funk so much. Like, it's just... this match, I don't know how else to describe it except for, like, it is a beautiful ballet of violence.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, Taka Michinoku had a moment in WWF for sure. Apparently, Dick Togo is still wrestling. He's in the Bullet Club in New Japan these days. He's had like 24 different gimmicks over the years. His Wikipedia page is also kind of fascinating. He debuted in 1991, so he's only been in the business like 6 years here at this point. I'm just going to read some of his ring names because I get a kick out of this stuff. Cancun, Dick Moto, Dick Sato, Dick Togo, Duke Togo, Flash Dick, that's a good one, Francesco Togo, Francis Togo, Genfatsu Sakigake, Kentaro Inferno, Ninja Warrior, P Togo, Prince Togo, Revolucion, Rey Cubano, Roshi Togo, Sato, the Sutter, El Tigre de Tokyo, and just plain old Togo. So those are some great names.
Flash Dick. For some reason I'm thinking like that's like the next Flash Gordon movie or something. Like, Flash.
Great match. So Great Sasuke, Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashiji win that particular match. And we move on.
Yeah, it's also fun to see cross-promotional factions. Like, that's something that people think of is more nowadays with like the Bullet Club, as you mentioned, and such. But here we are with the Blue World Order, and they've got guys all over the place working. And so after that match, you notice that the arena is getting smoky AF. And I really can't tell if it's because the fans are smoking or if they've turned on smoke machines, but it is very, very smoky in the arena. And I think they're introducing Shane Douglas at this point.
I'm guessing they set some trash cans on fire.
It's very possible.
Yeah, so this is Shane Douglas, who is holding the ECW World Television Championship. He is accompanied by Francine, and he has gone up against Pitbull number 2. That's a guy by the name of Anthony Durante. Pitbull number 1, Gary Wolf, is also there in the crowd.
Hurt in a neck brace.
Yeah. So they are, they're having a singles match for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. This is the longest match on the card, by the way, 20 minutes and 43 seconds.
This match goes on forever. And there's a Joey Styles says, "Look at that shameless hussy," about Francine.
Ouch.
Yeah. I mean, she's Philly hot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. She's not going to be a diva over in WWE, but I mean, it's not like she's ugly, but
she's a Philly 8, which is like a New York 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and Shane Douglas gives a great promo at the start of this match too. He says, "You don't have to like me, and I don't give a shit if you do." So like, they just totally didn't bleep that out. But then they did bleep out when he says bitch. He calls someone a bitch, and they bleep that out. But they totally miss him saying the F word, saying shit, and several other bad words. But they just let that stuff go.
Yeah, there's a bunch of nonsense in this match. Shane Douglas comes in with the Riot Squad, who are a bunch of like sort of masked, helmeted, cop types, and so they get involved. At one point, there's I don't know.
Yeah,
one of them pretends to be Rick Rude, and they're gonna have this big reveal. It's actually Rick Rude, but it actually turns out to be Brian Lee, who you may or may not remember as the fake Undertaker.
Yeah.
And then the real Rick Rude shows up and and knocks out Shane Douglas, and then fake Undertaker Brian Lee chokeslams Shane.
Yeah, again, I'm more distracted by the crowd in this match. One, in Pitbull 2, he looks like he should be a shooter, but he just isn't. He's a mess. He's terrible. Get him out of there. The crowd, it's so crammed in there that if a fire went off, everybody's going to die. That's just the truth. There's a wonderful "You've got herpes" chant about Francine. Then there's "Let's go Pitbull, fuck 'em up." Let's go Pitbull, fuck 'em up.
Fuck 'em up.
And then we have a "We want blood, we want blood" chant as well during this match. So I don't think the crowd really cares about who is going to win or lose, just as long as someone loses really horribly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, I almost feel like they're a little just preoccupied during this match. It's okay. Like you said, it's a bit of a mess. There's not a great matchup between the two main guys. Francine slips Shane the brass knuckles at one point. He hits Pitbull with a table. There's he gets him with the ring bell. There's
the
all
finish
kinds
of this match is terrible.
Chris Candido comes out and tries to intervene and gets tossed. It's not great. I'm ready to move on. Honestly.
So like he takes a table. So Pitbull gets hit in the head with a table, and he kicks out from the pin. He then gets hit with a chair, kicks out from the pin. Gets hit with the ring bell, kicks out from the pin as well. And then Pitbull's pretending to like Hulk out, and then he gets hit with a belly to belly suplex, and that is what ends this match. Not solid steel to the head. So
no.
Yeah,
it's a little nonsensical. But fortunately, we get to one of the main event matches next. Maybe I would say one of my favorites. Again, not picking a favorite just yet. Yeah,
there was an incredibly intense and hilarious promo with Taz and his manager Bill Alfonso at the beginning of this match, and like Bill Alfonso. I remember him as a referee, but like I don't. But he's like Taz's manager, and he's got this incredibly like high pitched, nasally New York accent, like voice that is just it's so grating, and it's so miserable to listen to. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been in the business since 1979. He refereed all kinds of matches. It says he refereed his first match in Texas at the age of 21. He refereed a chain match between the Sheik and Terry Funk. That's the original Sheik. He was in Florida Championship Wrestling. He was all over the place. So he was at the first Starrcade. Again, it's another like Forrest Gump thing. It really is interesting because again, you think of ECW as this kind of one-off sort of low-down indie promotion, but you have to realize that there's guys here who have been, all over the business for 20 years in some cases.
Yeah.
And so they're not just coming out of nowhere. They've got like legit cred, and they know what's going to work, I think. And I think that was part of the secret. Again, under Paul Heyman's just, Machiavellian leadership, putting all this knowledge and all this just experience, just directing it in the right places.
You just mentioned the original Sheik, and Sabu is the Sheik's nephew.
Yeah.
So he's got cred, he's got trained, he knows the edgy stuff, which it's also hilarious is because they bill Sabu from Bombay, India, and he's actually from Staten Island, New York. And Taz is from Brooklyn. So it's really this two guys that are like across the river from each other in New York fighting each other. But, Sabu is from Bombay, India. You got to watch out for him. He's sneaky. And just looking at Sabu's thing, he at one point was billed as Terry Snuka, so I gotta imagine that at some point they tried to pass him off as Jimmy Snuka's son or something like that.
Probably nephew, cousin, whatever. I just learned like maybe a year or two ago that Taz isn't black. I just always thought he was at least half black. No. He's just an Italian dude from wherever the fuck.
Yeah, because you look at Hook, and you don't come out that white.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was what tipped me off.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a thing I learned.
Well, I didn't realize that Hook was his kid for a while, and I was like, wait, they don't wait, slow up. So
Taz was great. Taz was incredible, and
yes.
he got injured so quickly after he kind of made it big, and then really had to stop like just as quickly, and so I feel bad in a way that he never really got. He's doing great. Like, don't worry about Taz, but like I think he could have had some really stellar matches over the years, and maybe it's best that he didn't. He's still in good enough shape to walk around and do a lot of really cool commentary, but he was just a lean, mean fighting machine. And if you haven't seen early Taz, like this is a fantastic place to see him in this match against Sabu. It's just a singles match, no title on the line, just two dudes just beating the holy fuck out of each other. I think I texted you during this one. I'm like, I don't think these guys are working. I think they're legitimately trying to kill each other because this is a tough one.
It always sticks in my head, that thing that Jim Cornette talked about, how like WWE's ring is harder and the ropes are rougher, and that it shortens wrestlers' careers. And I can't help but wonder if that, like, with Taz's love of doing all these suplexes and throws and stuff, if that, like, just like when he made the jump over to WWF, that just like shortened his shelf life.
Yeah. Seems quite possible, at least, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but because like watching this match, man, both of these guys, again, just like the 6-man tag, these guys are going at the speed of light. They're not stopping. They are just one move after another, one into another. There's no laying on the mat resting. There's no rest holds. There's no nothing happening like that. It is move into move into move into move. Nothing but chain sequences of things is going bonkers. Like you start to sweat watching this match.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. The forearms that they exchange, I'm usually not a fan of the forearms in place of actual punches, but these look like actually legit forearms intended to break somebody's face. Sabu does start bleeding from the nose at one point.
There's no doubt that Taz broke Sabu's nose very early in this match. Immediately. Just like first shot, bam. And then there's this blood gushing out of Sabu's nose. So
yeah, it's awesome. There's also more suplexes per minute in this match than maybe any other match you're going to see.
Maybe if you go watch Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle at some point, but there's so many suplexes and so many weird configuration of suplexes that are happening. But also at the same time, there's hardcore stuff being thrown in too. Sabu throws a chair at Taz and just nails him right in the face with it. And then they end up fighting in the crowd, and you can hear Bill Alfonso screaming at Taz that Sabu he's still alive. He's still alive. Like,
I love it. I love it. Yeah, no, they're very creative. They really, again, they work for 17, 18 minutes, something like that. And I felt like I didn't know what was coming next. They just keep pouring it on and pouring it on. And like, Jesus Christ, how these guys are going to die before we're done here. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And then they hug at the end of the match and the crowd boos them. So good. Like Taz, this is like, you took me to the edge of my limit. I appreciate it. And then anytime you want another match, you got it. And then they hug and crowd boos, and then RVD charges down and takes Taz out. And then Sabu lands the Arabian face buster on Taz, whatever the hell that is. And then big drama, Bill Alfonso turns on Taz and reveals an RVD and Sabu shirt on underneath.
Yeah, and he joins in the melee there.
What a dirt!
That's got to hurt your feelings. Yeah, again, holding off on superlatives here until we get through this. We do go right into are there any promos in between here?
No, they introduce Tommy Dreamer coming down as a special color commentator for the next match sequence, and he adds absolutely nothing. He talks maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
In fact, he tells them not to talk to me. Great color commentary by Tommy Dreamer.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and he comes out with a woman. Was it Tatiana? Was that her name? I can't remember her name now, and I didn't write it down. It was Beulah McGillicuddy. Her real name, Trisha Loughlin. She is Tommy Dreamer's real-life wife. So she's like his arm candy, and the crowd starts chanting, "Show your tits" at her.
Oh, very classy.
Yeah.
So classy, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But this is a three-way dance, to determine the number 1 contender for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. So you've got Terry Funk versus the Sandman and Stevie Richards. And Richards has the Blue Meanie, Hollywood Nova, Thomas Rodman, and 7-Eleven in his corner. So there's a lot going on there. And then the winner of this one will go right into the next match against Raven for that title. So they this is our Terry Funk moment. We've been waiting for it.
Yeah.
He delivers as he always does.
Yeah.
So Terry is, how old is Terry here? Let's look.
He is an elder gentleman at this point.
He is for sure. He was born in 44, so he would be 53.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts, maybe 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, too old to be doing this stuff, but
For sure.
but still amazing at it.
Yeah. And Sandman, again, he just rolls down to the ring smoking a cigarette in Zubaz pants and a t-shirt and a kendo stick. And then he chugs a Budweiser, and then he smashes the Budweiser can on his forehead and begins bleeding.
I don't get him at all.
I don't either.
He's not for me.
Yeah, that cues the crowd to start chanting, "Fuck him up, Sandman, fuck him up."
I mean, he definitely seems like he's over. The crowd is here for it. But I don't know. He doesn't really...
He is a god-awful worker.
Yeah, I was going to say, he doesn't appear to have any training as far as I can tell.
He is terrible in this match. So, like, he gets slammed into a ladder at one point and flops around like a fish, kicks out of the pin, and then just stands up like he's fine.
To me, this would have been better to have either a tournament or something, just end up with a two-way match, or just give it to fucking Terry Funk and let the man go beat on Raven. Like,
yeah,
he's earned it, right?
Like he's just fine. He's just fine. You know, Sandman just pops right back up. You know, and I think that's now I can't help but thinking that, like, so Stone Cold always talked about how he hated any time that, like, an opponent jumps up after a near fall before he does.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just beat you up and I just tried to beat you. Why are you now getting up before me? And now I can't help but to think that he was just, like, specifically talking about the Sandman, because he does it multiple times in this match.
Yeah, they get all the usual accoutrement in here. There's a garbage can, there's a steel chair, there's a lot of work outside the ring, of course. They powerbomb Stevie Richards, and both Funk and Sandman pin him to eliminate him, so that leaves just Sandman and Mr. Funk.
Which is the way you should do a three-way match. Elimination. There needs to be elimination, because you can only watch three people go at it for so long.
Yeah, agreed.
And Terry Funk lands a moonsault off a ladder. He does. A 53-year-old Terry Funk, who wasn't already very nimble in his spry years, does a moonsault off of a ladder onto Steven Richards. Wow. You don't need to do that, Terry.
There's barbed wire comes out. There's blood everywhere. Stevie Richards comes back and super kicks Sandman, which lets Funk get the win there. I agree. I like the elimination better than the just whoever gets pinned first. You know, whoever gets the first pin wins, because that's silly, right? Like it lets a person who, if you're in a title match, it lets a person who doesn't even have a belt win by pinning someone else who doesn't have a belt. And if that were my belt and I lost it that way, I'd be really pissed.
Yeah, I'm happy for that, but, like, this match is just a mess in my opinion. I don't think it really did much, and I think partially because Terry Funk just starts bleeding like he's being butchered. Like, there's just so much blood to the point where, like, I feel like Stevie Richards and the Sandman didn't know what to do when he started bleeding that much. Because holy shit, there's a lot of blood. Like, oh my god, I thought that the Magnum TA and what's his name in the cage, was brutal and bloody, but no, this takes that. Jesus, this is just nasty. And, like, Terry Funk has this massive gash across his kidney area that's about 18 inches long. That is, it's open, and no, stop.
Yeah.
Please just stop this match.
I have to say I didn't particularly enjoy this, and I didn't particularly enjoy the match that came after it either, because he just keeps fucking bleeding on into the next match. Or should we roll into the next match while we're here?
Yeah, because I mean it's a segue. It's as they would say in classical music, it's attacca. It rolls right into the next movement. It doesn't stop.
As long as we're all covered in blood, you might as well keep going. So
right,
yeah. So Terry Funk has set himself up as the number one contender for that belt that Raven has. So Raven comes out, they get to it. The bleeding just continues. They go at it. It's this is a much shorter match. This is like a third the length of the previous match. Some of Raven's, like, whatever you call them, hangers on,
I think they're called.
Posse. Come out to help, and then that makes Tommy Dreamer get up from the announce table where he's been not commentating to come over and help out Terry Funk. Terry ends up getting the win with a DDT from Tommy Dreamer, and he is the ECW World Heavyweight Champion. He looks really happy, but he also looks really, really bloody and uncomfortable.
Yeah. This is the point where Tommy Dreamer says, "I have to watch this. Don't talk to me," on the color commentary, and he already wasn't talking much. So that's the end of him. And then Raven actually attacks the ringside doctor while he's trying to attend to Terry Funk. And then Big Dick Dudley shows up out of nowhere. This is apparently his comeback, and he attacks Tommy Dreamer. But then Dreamer throws him off the announcing platform, which is like set up in a corner, probably about 12 feet off the ground. And for some reason, there were 3 tables stacked on top of each other right next to it. And Dudley conveniently goes through all 3 of them on his way to the floor. And then the fake finish even fakes out the timekeeper, who rings the bell early in this match. And then the real finish happens, and Terry Funk gets the win and bolts out of there with the belt covered in blood.
I hope he went directly to the emergency room to get some staples and stitches and antibiotics and probably a few other things.
Yeah, maybe he went to like to Jefferson Memorial and got like a frozen paper towel in a bag.
Yeah, poor guy. Well, that pretty much does it. That's the 9 matches on ECW's Barely Legal. Any closing thoughts before we get to our favorites and oh shit moments?
This is a hell of a way to take yourself national, right? Yeah. Like, wow, welcome ECW to the dance here, because I mean, this is right in the Monday Night Wars, and then suddenly there's a dark horse for the people that like, oh, WWF and WCW are too soft. I don't want to watch that. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here you go. How about this?
It's like, would you like Coke, Pepsi, or Broken Glass?
Yeah, as ultimate as UFC's around by this point too. So like, yeah, people that want to see real violence can kind of watch that, but that's kind of tame. You can watch this, and it's still professional wrestling, but then it's real violence. Lots of table breaking, lots of missed spots. There's some sloppiness that happens throughout this show that, like, you're just kind of like, you actually start feeling bad for Paul Heyman, because you know that he's in charge and he's taking this big risk to push them out on pay-per-view and satellite, and then you see things where like the table just slips away, so it's not quite as dramatic, or you know, it's getting warm in there, and so the ropes, people are slipping off the ropes because they're sweaty, and they're, you know, and so you kind of just go, oh, it's too bad this isn't quite missing the punch that this could have made if all of these spots went perfectly.
Yeah, and like we said at the top, you know, so they made enough noise that the WWE eventually started paying attention, right? And then, you know, when the iron was hot, when the opening was there, they bought up ECW and incorporated it and brought folks like Taz and Paul Heyman into the fold. And so it's and with it came the hardcore stuff that, yeah, it's not for us, but it hung around for quite a long time in the mainstream WWE shows. And with it, I think came some of the sloppiness that you've noticed, and some of that ethic of like, well, you don't have to be fully and completely trained to do this. You can, I don't think the Sandman ever came over and worked for the WWF, but there were maybe some folks in the business who owe the fact that they kind of could slip in to the ECW's influence. Guys like Rob Van Dam and Lance Storm, the Japanese wrestlers in that 6-man, those guys were going to be fine, regardless. But some of these other guys probably wouldn't have had much of an opening. Pitbull number 2, I don't see him being brought to the Performance Center anytime soon. So you want to talk best match?
Well, I mean, that 6-man tag, I'm still breathless from it.
Yeah.
The Michinoku wrestling guys coming over and putting on a fucking clinic. I think that's it. And I can't help but to think that like the Young Bucks watched that match and were like, we should do that.
Yeah.
And then they try their best to do the stuff that they did in that match, and it just falls flat for them. This is, for some reason, these guys, man, they are spot on through that entire match, and it's a work of art.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, and I would probably, it's definitely my favorite sort of the more classical technical matches. For like sort of ECW feel, I think I have to go with the Taz and Sabu match, just because of the level of violence and the realness of it, and it's more in, more in keeping with the the kind of the brand of ECW. So the 6-man tag sort of felt like an anomaly almost on this card. But like, if you ask me to sum up this promotion, I would say it's that 3-way dance where everybody's Terry Funk's bleeding and 2 of the people kind of suck. But in terms of really good matches, it's Taz and Sabu. So, did you have a least favorite?
Least favorite is probably it's really close between the 3-way dance and the Shane Douglas versus Pitbull 2, but probably Shane Douglas versus Pitbull 2 is going to take it, just because Pitbull 2 he looks like a glorified jobber through this match. It's not fully trained.
Yeah, he sucks. Those would be my bottom as well. I think the Shane Douglas and Pitbull is a little bit worse because it's longer.
Yeah.
It's longer by about a minute and a half, which is definitely a minute way more than it should have been.
Yeah, and it didn't feature Terry Funk doing a helicopter with a ladder around his neck.
What a beautiful maniac that guy was.
Oh,
I
my
miss
God,
him for sure.
Yeah.
So, fortunately, his work will live forever. We'll always get to enjoy it. And then, well, it seems a little silly to ask about an oh shit moment, but did you pick out one from this card?
So, I mean, there's just a general amount of blood that's in the 3-way dance. But I think my oh shit moment was the first time Sabu sets up the chair and bounces off the ropes and jumps off of the chair and springs over the top rope to land on the Taz. Like, how does he get that much air without a rope? Like, he just has an incredible vertical jump by himself. Like, it's Macho Man-esque. Early 80s Macho Man.
Yeah, that dude is athletic for sure. Mine was probably those forearms where it's very clear that Taz breaks Sabu's nose. That definitely got my attention. I'm like, all right, I'm all in on this match now. So
yeah.
Overall, are we rating this one? It's not a WrestleMania.
Well, it's not on
WrestleMania,
but I give it a rating of you've got herpes. That's my rating of this one.
And I'd give it a rating of show us your tits. Well, we do like to just take a moment to pay tribute to the men and women we've seen on the show that who are no longer with us, or in memoriam section for the ECW Barely Legal pay-per-view from 1997 include Louis Spicolli, who was in a dark match, Cronus of the Eliminators, a.k.a. George Calagio, Chris Candido, Pitbull number 2, a.k.a. Anthony Durante, of course the inimitable Terry Funk, and Ravishing Rick Rude. All right, well, that's our show for today. We hope you enjoyed listening along. We are at allthewrestlemanias.com. You can always drop us an email at allthewrestlemanias@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on X at WrestleMania Pod. You can find us on Instagram. We've even got a Threads on the Instagram these days. If you'd like to support the show, which we super very much appreciate, you can go to ko-fi.com/allthewrestlemanias. Drop us the cost of a cup of coffee. It helps us, with technology and the various subscription services and our wrestling t-shirt wardrobe. We need to keep those up, of course. But we really do appreciate those of you who take a moment to support the show in that way. Anything else for today, Rich?
All this thing is missing is like Philly snowballs, throwing D batteries at the wrestlers or something. Man, what an insane show this was to watch. That was a lot of fun.
What an unfortunate thing to happen on D Battery Night. Alrighty, well, we're gonna sign off for today. I'm your co-host Tim,
and I'm Rich,
and we'll see you next time, everybody.